So while I was talking, I think you can tell. Yes, yes, thank you. Just see this whole wheel. This wheel talks about completely wheel of emotions, expressions. Let us take an example over here, then I will go into this wheel so it becomes easy for you to understand rather than looking at the wheel like this. Let me tell you a situation which has happened, which I was witnessing that situation. This is a teenage girl of around 14 years, and she's an ace badminton player. She had a match on one of the school days, and she goes for the match with a lot of enthusiasm, and she has worked very well and things like that. And she goes to this match, and while she was playing, to her bad luck, she lost her game with 1 point. And then she comes back into her changing room, and while she is in the changing room, all her schoolmates make fun of her, and then she feels very disgusted over there, and then she just comes back very calmly without talking. She has tears in her eyes, and she just comes back to the home. While she returns home, her mother greets her, and she welcomes her into their home, and she asks, baby, do you want to eat anything? That triggered the daughter, and then she was not at all interested in anything to eat at that point of time. She was furious. She displayed lot of her body aroused, and lot of different she shouted back at her mom, and she told, I'm not feeling hungry, and she slammed the door at her face, and she got inside. Now her mother was asking, what is the reason for your anger? What has happened? I just asked you, are you feeling hungry? That's it. But just understand what has happened. If you just go back to the events, what has happened with this child, what are we seeing? Number one, the first, she has lost the match. So what is it happening? She is feeling disappointed, she's feeling disgusted, she's feeling awful. This is where she's there, she's embarrassed for the whole thing. And then what happens? She gets into this zone. She's ridiculed by her school classmates. She was bullied, and she was feeling humiliated, let down. She was feeling disapproved and things like that. So many things were happening over in this. So when she comes back to home, and if the trigger was, even though her mom has asked just a simple question that would you like to eat something, it triggered her so much. She showed and displayed it in a very mad and aggressive way and a frustrated way, and it came out as an anger is a strong emotion. These are our core 7 strong emotions for any one of us. But then comes the primary emotions, then comes the tertiary emotions, and most often all these are interrelated, and we don't know what triggers what. Somewhere when we are angry, we can even keep quiet, we become hostile, we become withdrawn, we become numb. People even don't know what is going on with the person. People may think that he or she is very numb because they are feeling sad, maybe, but it is not sadness. In sadness also, people will get feel abandoned, or they will withdraw and things like that. But there are multiple primary or secondary emotions which are keeping on happening at a similar point of time. So recognizing the emotions is not an easy task. Is it a rocket science? No, not a rocket science though. But still, is it very easy? It is not very easy, because we need to exactly understand what is happening, and then we have to be able to label this, recognizing, understanding, labeling, then sharing what we are feeling, and then regulating it. So that is where most often, when we are not able to do this in an appropriate way, we are able to lose out on our relationships. We are having lot of fights around our relationships. We are having lot of arguments around all of this. So going from here, why an EQ? Why we should know an EQ? Why as a HR I should know EQ? Or why as a leader I know EQ? EQ, people with high EQ are happier, are healthier, and more successful in their relationships. High EQ people exhibit balance with emotion and reasoning. They are aware of their own feelings. They can empathize. They can show compassion to others. They also possess very high self-esteem. And the question arises, are we created emotionally equal? No, we aren't created emotionally equal. We do have our emotional quotients very different. Why? Because we are our experiences, our situations, our whatever we have seen through in our life and things like that, that makes us makes up our fabric of EQ. So that's why we have different emotional temperaments. The way we act out, express ourselves, and use our emotions can be also changed. We can regulate our emotions. We can learn it how to handle over our situations. Is it possible that we can do it better in a next time if the same situation arises? All of that, yes, we can do it. That's what it is. And some of the statistics around it are then 70% of the reasons for losing out a customer are EQ related. And sometimes as HR people, you could see that people do not find, 75% of the employees say that they do not find their managerial leadership quite inspiring or so. And today when we are seeing that the lack of trust is becoming a very, very fragile issue for all of us, because we are working remotely. The employees not have a trust on their organizations or their team members or team managers. Similarly, team managers also are feeling very difficult to trust with whatever the employees are giving the outcome as their performance and things like that. So they continue in that, we can see that EQ at work. EQ, if you are having good emotional quotient, that is what will enable a star performance for great leaders development. EQ also allows people to think up very clear under pressure situations, under stressful situations. They can eliminate time wasted by anger, anxiety, or fear, or such things. And EQ is as important as any of the cognitive or IQ skills, which we are always checking for hiring, talent acquisition, and things like that. And most often we train people on different technical skills or functional skills and things like that. But this is where the EQ plays a big role. EQ becomes very highly important, that people with high EQ can manage teams very well. They can lead organizations very well, and they can solve problems very well. They can impact and build very good, healthy relationships in the teams. For all of this, we need to understand emotional literacy. Today, across countries, we see that emotional literacy has been a biggest failure. Why? During our Vedic times, or during our very, very, if you talk about very early historical times and all, we used to take care of our emotions. We used to learn about each emotion, application of each emotions, and things like that. But gone are those days where we teach anywhere, in either in school or in educations or in corporates or anywhere, about emotional literacy. Emotional literacy is nothing but expressing emotion. It's in a very simpler manner. The simplest definition is the ability to express feelings with specific feeling words. Example: I'm feeling thirsty, I'm feeling hungry, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling rejected, so that the other person can also understand. If supposing if I say I feel rejected, for instance, it is an indication that I need an acceptance from someone. That's where we can understand. It is so very simple, so very easy. If you see in children, they are able to do it much better than the grown-up elders, because they exactly connect with their feelings. They understand their emotions, what is coming out, and they express it in a very right way. As we grow big and big, we are unable to do this process in more efficient manner. Going around on the emotional literacy again, we are trying to have it as a process with 4 different levels. One, perceiving my emotion, the ability to understand and express feelings. Then using of the emotion, the ability to use feelings constructively, facilitating my thought process, my cognitive process, my everything, and putting a logical meaning around that. And then understanding what these feelings are giving me to, how can I change them, how can I understand what is happening with these emotions, and then coming to the area of managing emotions or regulating my emotions. So this is what is comprising of an emotional literacy. And this is where if someone wants to develop the EQ quotient, this is how they can give. I will, as I go through, I will give you another stepwise process as to how you can develop your EQ or emotional intelligence. So all said and done, we talk about rational IQ. IQ is something which we test people on. IQ is something which we see for all our hiring processes, or any of the time we get into the rational discussion. We understand what is the technical strength, what are the people able to do, whether they're doing problem solving, how are those things and all, the analytical skills and all. So though they are referred mostly to left brain activities, right brain, when we're talking about, as it's submitted into the slide number 1, that's what it is. Do not get confused as right brain or left brain, but these are activities which are done in the brain. That's it. EQ is all about understanding emotions and all, and how do you use them for constructive purposes. Whereas an interesting point to note here is EQ or EI can be learned at any stage for us, starting from your very small child of 3 to 4 years to your death, anytime, any whole of the life cycle. Whereas IQ is something which can get saturated at 18 to 20. That's the interesting point, and then how do we leverage EQ to help our IQ, what we have developed, to make ourselves very meaningful, to make us very much successful. So how did this concept arise? Where did this concept arise? This concept was until a century ago, we all knew, we were all working around, memory, learning, problem solving, and things like that and all. But it was Howard Gardner, Gardner's intelligence, multiple schools, multiple intelligence which he has given. That was the starting point of understanding that human being is he has multiple intelligence. Example, musical intelligence, example, natural intelligence, or kinesthetic intelligence, and things like that. He has given an 8 different intelligence which a human being can possess. And then in around 1990, Peter Solvay and John Mayer had come out, and they have also described this as social intelligence, and thereafter they named it as emotional intelligence. It was in 1995 the Daniel Goleman, the living guru of emotional intelligence, whom you can get in touch with him on LinkedIn, talk with him, understand, follow him, everything on this. He published a book on emotional intelligence for the very first time, and its application to the concept to business was the first time. How we can use EQ for our workplace was something which Daniel published it, and he made it very popular. And then on, there is a complete research going on. Many other people have joined with it. We have got a lot of publications and research around this. So according to Daniel Goleman, when we talk about a personality of an individual, it is not just IQ. It is the intersection of the IQ and EQ builds a personality. EI is an essential part of the whole person. EI is malleable. It can be learned at any point of time, and it impacts the IQ in personal success. So what is emotional intelligence? If you talk about what is the definition of an emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman very simply put it, it is recognizing our own feelings and those of others for motivating ourselves and for managing emotions well in ourselves and others too. And of course, if you talk about emotional competence, if you want to check an emotional competence in anyone being leaders over here or being managers, we need to check them on how are they contributing to the effective performance at work, how are they displaying outstanding leadership, and how are they managing a satisfactory relationships in the workplace or in life. This is where it is. And if you go to the model of Daniel Goleman, very simply put, the 5 components. If supposing I wanted to develop my emotional intelligence score, where should I see? There is a good test. There are around in the world, we have seen wherein when I have evaluated at least 18 good psychometric tests are available to understand our emotional quotient. And Daniel Goleman, of course, is a it's a master test. Then MHS mental health system has also given a great test. I have taken some of these tests and figured out for myself. And in India, we also have one psychometrician who has created a very, very interesting test, and it is a very cost friendly test, which is what I'm talking about. And we use that test very rigorously. We have evaluated around close to 35,000 people on this test. We found very interesting results over here. Now, why this test and why should I know about it? If I'm wanting to develop my EQ for any leader, for any manager, or for any position, if you have to hire anyone, very critical or anything, if we are evaluating these people on EQ, or even though it is not just for the hiring purpose, if in general, if I know my strength as like IQ, if I don't know my strength in EQ, then I will be able to know where my success lies. So now, while talking about the 5 components of Daniel Goleman, he talks about self-awareness, knowing your emotions. Do you know your emotions? There is a set of section of questions and the multiple subsections where you can correlate and figure out if I'm not self-aware of those emotions, how does it affect on my social skills? So there are correlations which are built in these tests, wherein we can take 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, or a 5-dimensional and figure out if things like that. If I score very less on my social skills or interpersonal or understanding emotions of others, then my empathy score also would become less. I will not be able to empathize others. I will not be able to recognize the emotions of others. If I'm not able to be motivated enough, and is there my internal motivation? If there is no motivation for myself, I feel very low and I don't have any internal motivations for in self, and I don't know what gives me that kind of goals or aspirations or things like that. I don't get inspired. Then what will happen is I will not be able to manage or regulate my emotions also. So these are all very interconnected, and this is where if you wanted to develop an emotional intelligence for each other, this is the point where we can check, we can understand, we can make a good impression for ourselves, we can get into understanding and progress. This is a very interesting slide, very, very interesting concept in emotional intelligence. This is little bit, I'll make it little scientific and then bring it back into the normal way of understanding. This is also called amygdala hijacking. What is an amygdala? Amygdala is a small organ in our brain, and this is the seat for all our feelings. You know, whatever feelings we get, this is what this is the place which gives out or rises up all our feelings. We also have higher cortex, or called neocortex. Neocortex is another organ which is there with all our evolved human beings, and the moment amygdala triggers any kind of feeling or emotion, if supposing the signal, the neurosignal, when it goes to neocortex, it takes a while. It just takes very millions of minutes. I mean, it is just an nth of a seconds which it will take. But even before that, amygdala is so powerful. Sometimes it hijacks so very fast before the neocortex, which is an organ which helps us in our regulation, which helps us in our thought process, rationalization, everything and all. Sometimes it could happen that it will not allow that to happen, or amygdala can react much more faster. Okay, that's where you see that many of the COVID victims, or many of the mob attacks, many of those lockouts, strikes, whatever has happened, you know, just, and if you see across the world today, people are getting into this emotional hijacking so very fast. If you see a small example, even the WhatsApp, you know, suddenly someone starts something, so people get hijacked with that, and then they start talking about all of that and all. Then people get raged about it, people get very opinionated about it and all. And this is the function which creates all kind of destruction for self and others. This is the one which will have lot of emotions which are which cannot be controlled, which we cannot have any type of regulation. So that's where, if supposing I am good at my understanding of my emotions, if my emotional intelligence is well regulated and things like that, that's where I can avoid having this emotional hijack. And I can also identify and proactively address my triggers. You know, okay, this is going to trigger me, I know that, I am aware of that, these are the situations, these are the things which can trigger me, so I'll work on that, and I will never ever allow my amygdala reactions to happen in my uh, body or arousals. So what is emotional dysregulation is, see, supposing again, anything which we have seen, or whatever situations have come within us, we just ignore sometimes, you know, and that is where it doesn't affect us. That's a weak intensity which we have. We are weakly motivated, not concerned about it, we just leave it like that and all. But when we are concerned, when we wanted to know that there is a different perspective to it and things, then it affects in somewhere, it gives us an average intensity to us. Then that is where we will try to change the condition of the behavior, or put things into perspective and make meaningful extractions of it and things like that. When you're too overwhelmed of the situation, it can go vary. It can burst out. We cannot change our behaviors. We cannot put things in our perspectives, and we can also become hyper motivated and hyper tensed in these situations or not. So the emotions are getting dysregulated, and this is how the whole of the graph goes on. Whenever we have that weak intensity, we are fine, but when average, we are able to take decisions, we are able to regulate, we are able to understand. But when we are overwhelmed, our thinking process stops off, and we are overwhelmed with the situation. So we become very, very different in our exhibition, non-adaptive reactions to this socially so normed. So how can I how can I work around my emotional regulations? My emotional regulations, I can, how do I see that, where are they going? How are they affecting me? How are they affecting others and things like that? So Paul Gilbert has given a very good model. You know, there are three bubbles, or he calls it as three bubbles or three circles, telling that most often people generally work in the area of this blue bubble or the red bubble. What does the blue bubble talks about? Blue bubble talks about achieving goals, accomplishments, our targets and things like that. So all of us these are all called drive system. In an organization also, we all work towards it, performance, productivity, things like that and things like. So most often we are all engaged around this. And imagine the situation when we came around in the COVID. What has happened? We have increased our threat system also. We have seen that, how do I survive in the situation? How do I seek safety for the situation? How do I manage different threats and things? So either we are in the drive system or in the threat system constantly. Either these two bubbles are equal in size. Whereas how do we work around the soothing system? How can I calm myself? How can I calm others? How can I exhibit kindness for self and others? How can I slow down? How can I become mindful? How can I rest? How can I do these things? Most often we have seen people getting into the stages of depression, anxiety, OCD, any of those things. We have seen that people who do not have, or not bothered, or not taken care of the soothing system. In order to have a well balanced three bubbles equal in size, we have to always consistently exercise and figure out where are we, what is going on in our current condition, what is overpowering us. And and most of the emotional burst outs or burnouts happen when we do not have soothing system in place. So talk to someone who is an empathetic listener. Talk to someone whom you believe that yes, they can help you out in these situations, or else you can figure out an emotional counselor or a coach who can evaluate properly and help you on to build this soothing system for yourself. Some of the coping skills, we can work around it. Sometimes we can people have gone into soothing skills like listening to music, meditations, or eating something, or having some nice perfumes around, smells around, which can soothe themselves. Or if you've seen now, most of the people have started working on their hobbies. They paint, they do puzzles, or they see music, they listen to good music or movies or stuff like that, or they write some motivational quotes they share with you, so that people get a little bit inspired by that, and they feel good about it, and they feel an attitude of gratitude and things. Or some of the exercises like mindfulness, meditation, doing some yoga, doing some breathing exercises, which can soothe our system. I would prefer, and which I have done, and it has helped journey into the emotional intelligence, was to keeping an emotional journal. That helped me a lot. If you are able to create a small journal and keep it for 21 days, understand what are your triggers. At the end of in the day, before putting yourself on sleep, if you take out a small write up book, and tell that what are those good times of the day when I felt good about myself, or when I felt positive about myself. What are those times of the day which I didn't feel nice about myself, or things which have happened to me? And what am I gratitude for? And things like that. If you're having a mix of a gratitude and emotional journal, if you keep in place over a period of time, you can understand what is triggering you, what is giving you soothing system, how can I help, how can I better off myself, and things like that. You can work on yourself and figure it out easily. So this helps a lot. And definitely, if you're in a situation where you cannot help yourself, then definitely reach out to a person who can help you in this coping up skills. These are very important, and in this crisis we are seeing many of them are not able to manage the situations, things like that, and we need to help them to cope up with this situation, because there is a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of physical and mental stress around across the societies and across the ecosystem, across different age groups and things. Children having different stress, working mothers having a different stress, male members not used to homework, and they're doing homework, they're partying with the homework, they have different kinds of stress. Elderly people also are having, and people with long-term diseases are having. So we need to build a lot of soothing systems around this to come over very cope up with this pandemic at this point of time. So we also, I'm telling that take care of the emotional ownership. How can I instead of becoming reactive, I can ask why this has happened, what are those situations which are triggering me, and things like that. And can I set some boundaries, can I become little articulative, can I set some assertiveness around to others to see that they don't bother me, and things like that. Can I empathize with others also, so that my reactions will positively affect them and make them feel happier, instead of totally leaving it as an emotional neglect. I don't bother about what emotions are coming, how it matters, how do I behave, let it happen, whatever happens. I get into the phase of emotional self-destruction and others destruction. Hope things are audible, visible, everything. I'm making a quick check with you. Is it audible? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. It's audible.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes.
Time,
So
Ranjana.
I don't know. I'm not getting the time sense, but anyway, I'm coming to a closure, Mr. Oja. So don't worry. Okay.
Okay.
The next thing is, how do I build resilience? See the spiral, very interesting spiral, for an organization or for an individual. Let us take directly to understand where are we. We are all in the status of this confusion. Organization is feeling agitated that goals are not getting achieved, productivity, my own plans for the business plans, unfocused operations and things like that. And as an individual, I'm a state of overload, agitation, mindless busyness for me. I don't know when to have work, when to have my life, a lot of confusions and things like that. So if I'm getting down the spiral, what's happening? If I'm getting disengaged with my employees, if I'm not able to connect very well, I get lost on productivity. I get lost of attention. I feel boredom. I feel worry about my jobs, everything sets in. Then if I'm withdrawn completely, no low morale for the employees, then engagement is gone completely. Here, the individual loses his energy, avoidance, isolated, doesn't know what to do. He's somewhere in some other hometown. He cannot connect with the employer. So everything is disconnected for the person. Vulnerable, absenteeism, presentism, and indifferences are set in. Self-neglect, fatigue, and distrust, regrettable talent loss can happen here. And then here in the self side, if you see, there is stress symptoms, sleep problems, illness is setting in, people are getting worried and withdrawn and things like that. Organization death can also happen, or loss of interest and sadness and depression. But if we are able to get up the spiral, if we are able to push up the spiral, if we are able to master stress, if we are able to be stable, if we can bring back clarity to individuals, to self, to the organization, and to the employees, if we are able to make people calm, alert, engage their presence, if an individual can feel that, then he will energize the body. Organization vitality and the well-being will come back. They will talk about that. They will give assurance about that, that yes, everything is going fine. Leaders are telling that yes, there is a conducive place. You work here. We are there for to protect you and things like that. The individual will find a lot of endurance and strength, and then they start engaging in the emotions of the people. Resonance will set in. Leadership will be exhibited. A nice culture is exhibited from the organization side. Individuals start feeling empathetic and things like that. Training the mind, body, soul, and things there. Feeling a lot of optimism than pessimism, and then coming out from the situation in a moment of joy, feeling hopeful, thankful, gratitude, compassion. And then of course the organization will feel that, hey, it is a sustainable world-class business I am doing, so I feel very good about myself. So this resilience, whole of this spiral, is a very good tool for any organization or for individual to take it as a path, that how should I handle this situation, how should I come out from this situation. Okay, we talk about, many a times I come across as a coach, I come across by telling that most often I'm referred as a very hypersensitive or highly sensitive person. Then I tell, so what, it is good. They tell, no, I have a lot of emotional bursts, and people tell that you are very emotional, you don't know how to manage your emotions, you cry a lot, you display everything, you're showing anger and things like that. Highly sensitive individual means not highly emotional or irrational. They are highly empathetic, they're deep thinker, deep listener, deep feelers, and they're detail oriented and things like that. So it doesn't mean that you're highly emotional or irrational. These are the highly evolved people. These are the people who can lead organizations. These are the people who can exhibit calmness around for self and others. These are the people who can show, way. They can carve out nice paths for each other for, success. Together they would want to seek success and things like that. But when we talk about it is not being highly sensitive, they are the highly feelers. So instead of telling highly sensitive as a wrong word, we can those are the people who are very highly on feelings. They get into the feeling state. Those feelings overpower their emotions. They get into the lull of that, and they live into that situation, and they're unable to cope up from the situation fast. So that's why you can see that they become very sensitive towards it. It is not being the sensitive people doesn't mean that exhibiting all that which we are trying to talk about, but the other people are becoming more feelers and emotionals. So I would say that we all can create impacts. How can we create these impacts? We can reach out to our fullest potential at this point of time. First thing first, that is master stress. Monitor your physical and emotional responses, what is going on through you. Use rapid calm techniques for yourself and others also, and counter the stress, and stop feeling negative emotions or negative behaviors, because this is going to affect very badly. Energize your body, do a lot of exercises, drink eat nutritional diet, drink more of water, have 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and healthy food also helps in that. Engage in your emotions, increase your emotional literacy. Constructive emotions enables clear thinking, decisiveness and compassion and agility, because we need to come out from this situation with high compassion and high agility. And we need to train our mind to be calmer, clearer, and steady, so that if we can follow all the 1, 2, 3, then we will be able to be more creative, more agile, and we come out as individuals, as new human beings, which is having new high spirits, where their mind, body, and heart is well trained and mastered, and we have a good clarity, and we also bring joy to ourselves and others around us. So that's pretty much Ranjana and Ojha from me. This is the last food for thought slide, where I say that mind is also a muscle. You can exercise it, you can make it stronger, and the more you can expand it. So there's nothing that we cannot work around it, we cannot do around it, we can make it more fine. So yes, I'm there in all these platforms. Connect with me, and we can always work together, we can always be there for each other. Thank you and namaskar for giving me great opportunity to be with you. I will stop my share, and quickly we'll go to the chat box, or however, whatever we can address all your queries. I hope it was meaningful, and
Thank you, ma'am, for your session. It was indeed a very, very much meaningful and learning session for us.
yes.
There is one question from Uma. If you can kindly answer that.
Okay, let me go. I'm just seeing. Yeah, emotional intelligence is buzz that is in the market now. But as we become wise in our and others' feeling, is there any toolkit as to how to handle our own emotion and around us? Of course, Uma, there is that. You can start with the emotional intelligence test. Otherwise, even managing an emotional journal, and also the third thing I could recommend is a moodometer or the emotional scale. Just start there. Just start to monitor your moods first thing, and see on the mood meters. And there is a good app which is available on Google Play Store. It is by Yale University, YALE. Yale University has developed this. We can download that app, and we can maintain our moods there, and we can understand how are we developing our emotional intelligence. The second thing is, even if I don't want to do all of that, I can go into an emotional scale, check for myself, where am I, how am I. Keeping an emotional journal, that itself helps us. Talking about it to others and understanding and observation helps us a lot. And definitely emotional intelligence should be a buzz. We have to create it more and more, because today emotional literacy is not at all there. That's why you can see in organizations, in societies, in different ecosystems, why things fail. Things often fail because there is lack of emotional intelligence. Please remove the mask on the screen. Okay, as a department head, what are the top 3 emotional intelligence factors he or she needs to focus for effective performance, as well as for strong bonding with colleagues? Definitely, I would say that as a department head, if we have to talk about all the 5 areas which has been put by Daniel Goleman: the self-awareness, managing emotions, understanding your internal motivators, empathy, and interpersonal relationships. These are the 5 areas. If you put it together and have a metric around it, and if we focus around it, definitely you will be able to have good leaders being developed in your team. That's what I would submit. Thank you for the one working from home. But a few people are taking it as a holiday with the reason of COVID. How to motivate them as a work is also very important. Absolutely, Nimshamba. Am I taking your names correctly, Nimshamba? Nisham, Nishma, Nishba. Nishma. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. But yes, we have many people taking it as a holiday. They are not able to this one. But it is not easy to motivate anyone, because we are not used to these kind of situations. We are not used to working from home. So people feel that it's very difficult. How do I monitor? I'm not there next to person to observe whether he's working or not, because we are used to those situations, those way of seeing people and things like that. So that is very much, I think we need to be constant touch with them, talk to them, tell them that it is important that you have to display your work and monitor their work by giving them tasks and repeatedly being with them, engage with them.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
I have one query. Yes, I think
ma'am, we have only 1 minute time remaining.
Yes,
so
yes,
I have to, we have to say very much thankful to you.
I know we have some questions. Yes, I have some questions. What you can do to me, Ranjana, you can pass on all these questions. I will answer them and I'll return to you so that you can share it with
Sure.
Divya, Kabindra, Uma, and Rupesh and things like that. Please don't feel bad. I would have loved to answer all of your questions. I would have loved to hear all of you, but I think we have time constraint. We have just 60 seconds to go, and today technology is going to ride us, and that is what Industry 4.0 is all about. We are going to be in the technology-based environment. But please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on personally on my WhatsApp or things like that. I'm there here to discuss anything with you all. And thank you, Ranjana, and thank you, Mr. Oja, for creating this opportunity to me to talk to you, to reach out to you. And I'm sure if you wanted any more sessions like this, we will again do it. We will help you each other. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you all participants. Thank you so much.